Today's tutorial video is how to identify types of triangles by their sides and by their angles. So let's go ahead and get started and notice what we are kind of going to look at first are the angles. So looking at the angles, we have 59 degrees, 59 degrees, and 62 degrees. We should notice that all of these angles are less than 90. So if we're going to classify this triangle by its angle types, we would classify this as acute. It would probably help if I spelled it right, so let's go back. There we go. This is an acute triangle. Next, let's classify it based on its sides. So looking at the side measurements, we notice that we have two sides that are the same measure. If we have two sides that are equal, this is referred to as an isosceles triangle. So two sides are congruent, it's isosceles, and if we want to classify it by its angles, it would be acute. Let's try the next one. So number 2, again, we're going to classify by angles and by side types. The first thing that should jump straight out to you is this 90-degree angle. It doesn't matter what these other two angles are, but if you see a 90-degree angle, if we're going to classify it by angles, this would automatically become a right triangle. That box means 90 degrees. So as soon as I see it, my brain needs to think 90. Looking at the number of sides, again, we have two sides marked congruent. Two sides being congruent lets me know straight off that it is also isosceles. Remember, isosceles has two congruent sides, equilateral has all congruent sides, and scalene has no congruent sides. Let's move on to number 3. Again, we're going to classify based by angle and by sides. Looking at the angles, I notice we have a 30-degree angle, a 30-degree angle, and a 120-degree angle. If you ever have an angle that is greater than 90, that angle is always classified as obtuse, and that makes this triangle an obtuse triangle based on the angles. Again, looking at its sides, I have two side lengths that are the same measure. And I did not mean to put all of the isosceles triangles back to back, but it just so happens this also is isosceles. Two congruent sides means that it is an isosceles triangle. All right, let's hop down to number 4. Now number 4 is a little trickier because there is nothing in number 4 that's telling us any other information about our triangle. We have no numbers, all symbols. This is where notation is very, very important. So again, we're going to classify by angle type and by sides. First thing that jumps off to me on this page is this 90-degree box. We just talked about that up above. If it has a 90-degree angle, it's automatically a right triangle. Looking at the number of sides, 1 bar, 2 bar, 3 bar, that means all those sides are different. If all the sides are different, this is called a scalene triangle. Moving on to number 5. I lost count. Okay. Looking at my angles, I have a 42, 42, and 96. So again, I have another angle that is greater than 90, so this would be classified now as an obtuse triangle. It just takes one triangle or one angle to be bigger than 90 for it to be classified as obtuse. Doesn't matter about the other two. Sides, again, it looks like I really like isosceles triangles. We have two congruent sides, making this side this triangle classification isosceles. And the last example, by angles and by sides. I have an angle of 45, 50, and 85. Those are all less than 90, so this would be classified as an acute triangle. Then I have 1 bar, 2 bars, and 3 bars. All of those bars are different, so this would be a scalene triangle. And I definitely didn't mean to leave off equilateral and equiangular, so let's go ahead and just add that down at the bottom. So down at the bottom here, I'm going to draw an equilateral triangle. Equilateral triangles have all angles the same and all sides the same. So all my angles are equal, all of my sides are equal. If I'm going to classify this, oh, that's so done. If I'm going to classify this by angles, this would be called equiangular. And if I'm going to classify it by sides, we would call it equilateral. In an equiangular triangle, they are all 60 degrees. But that doesn't make it acute. Remember, we want to be as specific as possible.